January 26, 2026 was not the day Nigeria heard a verdict. It was the day Nigeria heard a warning. Because while the country was still watching the unresolved case of Nnamdi Kanu, still waiting, still bleeding patience, a quiet announcement slipped through the system. Justice James Omotosho, the same judge who presided over Kanu's explosive trial, had been nominated among 48 names for elevation to the Court of Appeal. On paper, it looked routine. In reality, it landed like a tremor. At the exact same time, Kanu's appeal was moving toward that very court. And no, this is not about whether Omotosho would sit on the appeal panel. The law forbids that. Everyone knows that. That is not where the danger lives. The danger lives in proximity. In timing. In perception. In fragile justice systems, perception is not decoration. It is oxygen. And Nigeria's justice system is already gasping. So Nigerians did not ask the polite question, is this legal? They asked the honest one, who benefits? Because history has taught them something brutal. In Nigeria, promotions rarely float in a vacuum. They travel through currents of power, alignment, and silence. When a judge who delivered one of the most politically sensitive rulings of the decade suddenly appears on the escalation ladder, coincidence stops sounding innocent. It starts sounding strategic. And when trust is already broken, even a shadow feels like proof. This nomination did not calm the system. It exposed it. And once a system is exposed, every delay, every silence, every next move becomes evidence. Which brings us to the next question Nigeria cannot avoid. Just because something is legal on paper, does that mean it is clean in reality? Let's be precise, because precision is where lies usually collapse. Yes, the process was legal. Yes, the Court of Appeal requested additional justices. Yes, 48 names were forwarded. Yes, only 12 would survive. On paper, everything looks clean. But Nigeria does not live on paper. When the Federal Judicial Service Commission invited the public to submit comments on the integrity and suitability of nominees, they called it transparency. Nigerians heard something else. They heard performance. Because in systems under pressure, transparency does not kill influence. It relocates it. Lobbying does not need brown envelopes anymore. It moves through phone calls, networks, favors owed, favors promised, and the oldest currency of all, silence. Let's say this clearly, so no one twists it later. There is no proven evidence that Justice Omotosho paid for this nomination. No document. No recording. No envelope. But here is the question Nigerians are actually asking, and it is more dangerous than any accusation. Is the system itself capable of resisting interest? Because when judicial elevation follows politically explosive rulings, when controversial cases become stepping stones instead of red flags, people stop believing in coincidence. They start mapping patterns. And patterns destroy legitimacy faster than proof. A justice system does not collapse the day corruption is proven. It collapses the day citizens conclude that outcomes are rewarded. That is the wound Nigeria is bleeding from right now. If this nomination were truly harmless, it would not have triggered fear. It would not have ignited debate. It would not have forced Nigerians to ask whether justice is still blind or simply looking away. And once the doubt enters the bloodstream, the courtroom is no longer the real battlefield. Because ethics may block a judge from the bench. But they do not block power from the corridors. The law is clear. Almost painfully clear. If Justice Omotosho is elevated to the Court of Appeal, he cannot sit on the panel reviewing the Nnamdi Kanu appeal. Judicial ethics forbid it. Full stop. But here is the lie Nigerians have been taught to swallow: the justice is decided only when a judge bangs a gavel. Power does not work that way. Courts are not just rooms where verdicts are read. They are systems. Administrative machines. Quiet structures where decisions are shaped long before anyone stands to speak. Inside those corridors, no ruling is needed. Panels are formed. Cases are prioritized. Files are delayed. Timelines are stretched. No fingerprints. No scandal. just procedure. This is why proximity matters more than participation. When a judge who handled one of the most politically charged trials in modern Nigeria becomes part of the same institutional ecosystem reviewing that trial, the public does not see neutrality. They see insulation. And insulation is how power protects itself. No one here is accusing Justice Omotosho of interference. That accusation would be easy and lazy. The real concern is deeper, colder, and far more uncomfortable. Influence does not require action. Presence is enough. A justice system that truly respects independence does not just avoid conflicts of interest. It avoids the appearance of comfort between power and consequence. Nigeria has not done that. So when officials say, there is no ethical violation, Nigerians hear something else entirely. There is no rule against this. And that sentence has become the anthem of institutional decay. Because when ethics only block the courtroom, power simply walks the corridors. And what happens in those corridors determines who waits, and who walks free. Which brings us to the most profitable weapon in Nigeria's justice system. Delay. Here is the part they never explain on television. Justice Omotosho was not presiding over just one controversial case. He sits at the center of prosecutions that touch the raw nerve of Nigerian power, cases involving former governors, former ministers, former gatekeepers of the state. And elevation changes everything. If he moves to the Court of Appeal, those cases do not simply continue. They reset. New judges. New schedules. New procedures. New delays. In theory, that is just administration. In reality, it is leverage. Because in Nigeria's justice system, delay is not an accident. It is an asset. Every postponed hearing does something powerful. It drains public outrage. It exhausts witnesses. It reshapes political alliances. It allows headlines to move on while files gather dust. Ask yourself the question no official ever answers honestly. Who benefits from time? Not the public demanding accountability. Not communities begging for closure. Not victims waiting for justice. Time benefits those who can afford patience. And patience, in Nigeria, is a privilege of power. This is why delay functions like money, even when no cash changes hands. It buys protection. It buys forgetfulness. It buys survival. So when elevation threatens to collapse active prosecutions into procedural limbo, Nigerians do not see coincidence. They see consequence. Not because someone whispered an order. Not because a bribe was paid. But because the system itself is designed to reward delay. This is the most dangerous truth of all. Influence does not always enter through corruption. Sometimes it enters through process. And when process becomes profitable, justice becomes optional. Which is why the next question is not about envelopes or bank transfers. The real question is far more uncomfortable. What does money even mean in a system like this? When people hear the words follow the money, they imagine envelopes, suitcases, secret accounts. That image is comfortable. Because it limits guilt. But modern power rarely moves like that. In systems under stress, money is not always cash. It is outcome. It is time. It is position. It is protection from consequence. Say this clearly, and say it again. There is no proven evidence that Justice Omotosho accepted bribes. None. But there is overwhelming evidence that judicial outcomes carry value in Nigeria. That delay has price. That elevation shifts gravity inside institutions. And where value exists, influence follows. You do not need to pay a judge to benefit from a system that rewards patience. You do not need to issue orders when structure already does the work for you. You simply let the process breathe. That is how invisible money circulates. It buys silence without asking. It buys delay without demanding. It buys safety without fingerprints. And this is why Nigerians are not just angry, they are exhausted. Because they have watched case after case dissolve not in scandal, but in time. If the justice system were truly immune, promotions would be insulated from political consequence. Elevation would follow distance, not controversy. But that is not what Nigerians are seeing. They are seeing incentives align too neatly with power. They are seeing the same names rise while the same cases stall. They are seeing structure reward itself. And when a society realizes that money no longer needs to be visible to be powerful, faith collapses. Which is why this story has already split Nigeria not along legal lines, but along something far more dangerous. Trust. Nigeria is not arguing about law anymore. That is the lie everyone keeps repeating, that this debate is legal, technical, procedural. It is not. It is emotional. One side says Justice Omotosho is being unfairly attacked. That he followed the law. That judges should not be punished for doing their jobs. That targeting him weakens judicial independence. The other side says the opposite. That his handling of the Kanu case disqualifies him from elevation. That promoting him sends the wrong signal. That power is rewarding itself again. Both sides sound rational. Both sides cite law. And yet the argument refuses to die. Why? Because the real conflict is not about statutes. It is about trust. If Nigerians trusted the justice system, this nomination would have passed quietly. There would be no outrage. No suspicion. No fear. But it did not pass quietly. That alone is the evidence. A society does not immediately suspect motive unless experience has trained it to. People do not wake up cynical. They are taught. Taught by cases that drag for years. Taught by verdicts that arrive after relevance dies. Taught by promotions that feel disconnected from accountability. So now, every action is interpreted through trauma. And trauma divides. This is why the Kanu case has become a mirror. People are no longer asking what the law says. They are asking whether the system still belongs to them or whether it has been captured by comfort and access. When trust collapses, institutions do not need to be corrupt to be rejected. They only need to feel unreachable. And once a justice system loses emotional legitimacy, every high-profile case becomes something else entirely. Not a trial. A test. At this point, pretending this is just another trial is dishonest. The Nnamdi Kanu case is no longer about guilt or innocence. It has outgrown the defendant. It has outgrown the courtroom. It is now a stress test. A stress test of Nigeria's institutions. A stress test of judicial independence. A stress test of whether power can restrain itself. Support Kanu or oppose him, it no longer matters. What matters is what Nigerians are watching happen in real time. They are watching whether a system under pressure bends toward accountability or folds inward to protect comfort. They are watching whether controversial rulings create scrutiny or elevation. And so far, the signals are not encouraging. Because when a case this sensitive produces more promotions than clarity, more delay than resolution, more silence than explanation, people draw conclusions. Not from ideology. From pattern. A justice system does not earn legitimacy by quoting the law. It earns legitimacy by convincing its people that no outcome is rewarded except truth. Right now, many Nigerians believe the opposite. They believe the system recycles itself upward, insulating those closest to power while patience is demanded from everyone else. That belief is poison. Because once citizens stop believing that institutions can correct themselves, they stop waiting. They stop listening. They stop trusting peaceful process. This is why the Kanu case is dangerous, not because of who Nnamdi Kanu is, but because of what the case reveals. It reveals whether Nigeria's justice system can survive scrutiny, or whether it collapses under it. And that brings us to the final truth, the one no official wants to name. The most powerful money in this system cannot be seen. This story was never about envelopes. It was never about secret payments or hidden accounts. Those are distractions, comfortable villains that allow systems to escape judgment. The real danger is structural. The most powerful money in Nigeria's justice system is invisible. It is the value of delay, the protection of silence, the privilege of access, the quiet insulation of power from consequence. This is what breaks nations. When justice becomes procedure without trust, it stops being justice. It becomes theater. Rogues, devils, announcements, all motion, no moral gravity. Scripture says a house divided against itself cannot stand. And Nigeria is divided not because of ethnicity or religion, but because faith in institutions has been hollowed out. People are not angry because they hate the law. They are angry because they no longer believe the law hears them. The Nnamdi Kanu case did not create this wound. It exposed it. It forced Nigerians to look at a system that asks for patience but rarely delivers closure, that promises transparency but rewards silence, that speaks of ethics while power walks freely through the corridors. And here is the final warning: systems do not collapse when they are attacked. They collapse when they lose moral authority. If judicial promotions are not insulated from political consequence, suspicion will persist. If delay continues to function as currency, trust will keep dying. And when trust dies, procedure cannot resurrect it. So the question is no longer legal. It is spiritual. It is existential. Can a justice system that feels unreachable still command obedience? That question now belongs to every Nigerian and to history. If this message resonates with you, do not stay silent. Silence is how invisible money survives. Subscribe. Share this video. Ask the hard questions in the comments. Because justice that cannot survive scrutiny is not justice. It is power wearing a robe.